Why does your T-Mobile home internet suck? Hey, I'm Richard with thewirelesshaven.com, and I'm here to kind of go over a bunch of different reasons, but not a whole lot, as to why your home internet sucks. But I'll give you a real quick answer to the entire thing. You have lack of control. That's pretty much it. Whenever you have these devices from T-Mobile, regardless of whether you have antenna connectors built in or not, other than being able to maybe add antennas or modify to add antennas, that's only one level of control that you can get with those devices. All other levels of control are non-existent. So your home internet probably sucks because you don't have any control. So what does that mean? A lot of times, most people think that the signal, I got to get better signal, right? So if I get better signal, just like on my phone, I want to make sure that I get maximum bars. And that does help. That is a thing, but mostly universal for talking on the phone. Signal bars, signal strength metrics are important, but they're actually less important than other factors because of so many variables in the way things just work. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, but you can have a 60%, 3 bars of signal strength on a certain configuration or certain setup and get 5 times the speed as you would on another one that has 100% signal strength, 5 bars, 5 full bars, whatever it is that your metric is. So signal strength actually isn't immediately important, though it is important when you're connected to a tower. Okay, so that actually needs to be one of the later things that you look at if you have control. Sometimes it's just better to be on one tower versus another, and we'll get into that. But signal strength is not everything. It is not everything. Unlike fiber and cable, cellular has multiple points of connection. Fiber and cable, you get one. That's it. And a lot of networking equipment, a lot of uptime applications, a lot of things that will show you, how you're connected or make sure that you're connected, they're made for one point of failure, like fiber and cable or a single Ethernet cable if you're, in a multi-building place, whatever. But if that one connection point has a massive spike in ping or just a complete disconnection, that's super easy to know, hey, it's either up or down, right? Cellular does not work that way at all because of the bands. So there's multiple towers, there's multiple bands. Each of those bands you can think of as a different connection point, and they're dynamic. So they're constantly changing literally all the time. If you could see the signal metrics on your cell phone, you'll see that your cell phone also does not stay, it may show 5 bars or 4, 3, or 2, whatever, but it's not constantly connected. It's not even meant to be constantly connected. It's meant to be constantly connected in a way while you're using it, not while it's just online. So you may see 5 bars, but it doesn't mean that it's got some super solid fiber-like connection to the cell tower and into the internet at large. It does not. It's constantly changing bands, flipping back and forth, it's jumping between towers. It's a technology that made sure that you could always hear the other person on the other end of the phone and they could hear you. That's what cellular networks were built for. Data came later, piggybacked on top, and that's why we have different 3GPP generations, right? After we had 1G, 2G, 3G, 3GPP standards started coming into play, somewhere in there, right? And then 4th gen, 4G came out, now 5G, 6G is on the horizon. These are standards that they started to evolve to be able to utilize data and now purely work even voice on data on these cellular networks. But it's not a single line. It's not a fiber line. It's not a cable line. It's not so simple as to be up or down. So whenever you do have T-Mobile home internet and you're like, oh my God, this sucks. It's great if you can take something like an antenna and connect it to your device and then point it at a tower. Now, versus this sitting on a shelf, that's going to increase your signal strength. And in many cases, for a lot of people, that was the trick to make it even better, okay? But you might be on a tower that is terrible. So the towers are actually all different. No 2 towers colloquially speaking, are the same. There's plenty out there that are exactly the same, but generally speaking, for each individual user, and you are an individual user, your towers are not like the YouTuber's tower that he tested his device on and he got a gajillion megabits per second. You don't live in his house, so you don't have his experience, his or her, or their cell towers. If you sometimes even on the same cell tower but pointed from a different direction, you might have a different experience. So each cell tower is different, and you need to experience your cell tower. So your connection may suck because your tower sucks. Maybe. It gets more complex than that. But let's say you go to this tower and you connect to it, and then all of a sudden you hook up some antenna connectors and you get an antenna and you can point it at this tower now, and magically, maybe, that tower is just, that's the one that makes it so much faster. That's legitimate. It could be very well. This tower may be that the management protocols on the tower aren't run as well. They're broken for some reason. We've all had, something's wrong with my cell tower. It just went down, or all of a sudden my speeds went in half or whatever. And then calling T-Mobile and they fix something. They say, oh, it looks like it's fine, but we'll send somebody out, whatever. It gets fixed and all of a sudden it's better. So we know, generally speaking, being on cell towers for a long time, that some just don't work as good as others. And especially if you've traveled with your phone and you do speed tests or a little hotspot or something like that, or maybe you moved from you sold your house and you moved over to another place, or you have a cabin or something. And the speeds are different there, but you're using the same device. So your T-Mobile home internet may suck because your cell tower sucks. But this one over here maybe doesn't, so you can aim at that. Well, that is a lack of control on your part unless you can add an antenna. The antenna being outside is a net gain, and then being able to aim, say, a directional antenna versus an omnidirectional antenna, you can control your signal connection point to different towers. So you may live in an area, though, where there are 4 or 5 towers around you, all within a mile. Some very densely populated areas, New York City, different major cities around the world, in California and other places where there's tons of people, there may be tons of cell towers. And you might not even really need an antenna. And in fact, if you used an outdoor antenna and aimed it over here, because of the nature of these antennas, directional or not, it still will pick up signal from other directions. And you may be aimed at that one and still connecting to this one, because of the next point, bands. So cellular internet uses different bands. These are different frequencies that the FCC has licensed, and different cell carriers like T-Mobile have purchased the license to utilize these bands, and then they deploy these on their cell towers. So you may have known about band 41, band 66, 4, which is kind of the same thing now, 12, 2, 71, 77, 48 or 46. There's a ton out there. And this tower over here might have different bands than this tower over here. But it might also have the same bands, and yet if you're on 41 over here, it's giving you, let's say, 200 down. Some people would be like, oh, I wish, and 50 up, right? But this tower over here gives you 400 down and 3 up. Personally, here at this location, I get 400 down on 41 and I get 2 up. My location is different than someone else's location. Okay, on the one tower, I actually only have one tower here that it's available to me. And on that tower, if I have band 41 active, I'm not getting upload speeds. These bands are different: 41, 71, 25, 66, 4, 12, 2, 77. People talk, oh man, when I get 77, everything's going to be amazing. Well, not for everybody. So where does that tie in with control? If you can't choose those bands, if you can't at least turn some of them off, for example, if I have band 71 active on my site here, it almost comes to a screeching halt. For whatever reason, on my cell tower, 71 is absolutely garbage. For other people, 71 is the absolute savior of their speed. So for you specifically, if you do not have control over whether or not this thing is allowed to use those bands, then you don't get to control whether or not you get to be on the good band or bad band. You could have a directional antenna with modem inside, like the Elsys Amplimax Ultra. There are other devices as well. We sell this. You can aim at that tower over there And then you could say, I like that 41 that's over there, but my upload speed is horrible. So now I'm going to go over to this one over here, and the upload speed's better on 41. It's way faster, but it keeps grabbing 71 over here. It doesn't do that over there. Maybe it's not available over there. Maybe it is, but it keeps using 71 for some weird reason over here. I find that it usually likes higher frequency bands, but sometimes it will grab 71. So what do? On a device that gives you control, you can turn off 71. And now, maybe your T-Mobile home internet doesn't suck anymore. So control with antennas, control with band locking. Maybe you don't need an outdoor antenna, right? So you put the outdoor antenna outside and you're aimed at this one and it keeps picking up that one, stuff like that. You can also utilize band controls on other devices. There are plenty of them out there, routers, modem only devices, and you're indoors, you got plenty of signal. You want to be able to just turn off certain bands. It keeps going onto a tower that you're okay with. Well, you can use antennas to potentially do different towers, and some devices, they'll allow you to actually lock to the tower. So there's routers out there as well, modem devices like the InvisiGig. You can lock to a particular band on a particular tower. Again, control. So maybe when you're on this tower, that one works really good, but it's terrible when it uses band 25 first, but it's great when it uses band 25 second. Well, you can say, hey, let's lock onto this tower's band 41, and then that way we can leave 25 open, not turn it off, and then it works really good with 41 plus 25. Another thing, maybe for you, this is a big one that really blew up on Reddit and some other places, the actual modes. 5G standalone, which is just 5G bands, LTE only, which is the opposite, right? And then 5G non-standalone, which is LTE band first, 5G band as a secondary. A lot of people's phones actually work like that. It says 5G, but you're actually on LTE with the secondary being 5G. T-Mobile, more often than not now, uses standalone a lot for their cell phones, but even still, you won't know if you're on what's called ENDC or NSA mode, or if you're on standalone, it'll just say 5G. It'll say like UW for if you're on band 41, or UC, I think they use ultra capacity. So those bands, you don't have any control over that, right? And what I was speaking to earlier, it blew up whenever T-Mobile decided, hey, you guys that are on these legacy devices, or even some of the newer devices, a lot of people didn't know that they weren't on standalone. They were using non-standalone, which is an LTE band first, and then it aggregates a 5G band, maybe, sometimes. Those, for some people, were doing amazing. That was great. That non-standalone, or even just LTE, in some cases, that was doing amazing. And then T-Mobile decided they're gonna help everybody out. They're gonna push out updates to these devices, and they're gonna make you use standalone. And as a lot of people found out, not everyone has a good experience on standalone. Standalone for some is super fast. Now, we're not talking about cell phones. Cell phones can have different experiences as well. We're strictly talking about your sucky home internet, okay? Some people have great experience on standalone, and they got a much improved. They were like, oh man, when I got my new update and it went standalone, oh, my speeds went through the roof, right? Other people, not so much. And there was tons of comments online. Oh, my T-Mobile home internet sucks now. And ever since the update, I've lost all my speeds. I've been on T-Mobile home internet for years, and now I'm going to cancel. That's because standalone doesn't work for you. What do you need in that case? Control. If you don't have control where you can turn the mode from LTE only to LTE plus 5G NSA, or standalone only, then you don't have the level of control to get that speed back. With devices that are not provided by T-Mobile, you can get that back. That control goes back in your hands. So you can use antennas with either third-party devices or with the T-Mobile devices. You can add on an antenna, potentially, if you feel like modifying, or if it has connectors, right? Then you can aim the antenna and you get a little control there. Bands, you might have a terrible band, maybe on one tower or the other, and you may just want to turn that band off. I turn 71 off here on every single modem I have. 71 just does not operate here. Maybe one day they'll fix that, maybe not. The towers themselves can be terrible. This one's got a better band 41 or 71 than this one. They may fix that, they may not, but T-Mobile has not homogenized them. You never know. This tower over here might have a super duper bajillion gigabit fiber backhaul, and this one over here is running on tin cans and pigeon carrier pigeons or something. They may have different hardware backhauls as well. And now with the T-Mobile supporting the Starlink as a backhaul for their network as well as other points, and then you may have this tower over here may have 10,000 people on it at any given moment concurrently, and this one over here might not, or may have twice as many people on it. Those are all factors that we can't control for, but if we can control which one we connect to with directional antennas or with a tower locking mechanism or other similar factors, then we can really control whether or not we use this band, whether or not we use this mode, whether or not we use this tower. Those are all features that we can do to turn around your T-Mobile home internet sucking. If you had the control, you really could change that. Now, why doesn't T-Mobile give you control? Well, part of the reason is because it's complex. It's not simple. It's something that is going to take a lot of trial and error. It's going to take you doing tests. It's going to do all kinds of stuff. Why doesn't it do it automatically? Well, we can't really, you can if you want, but you can't really just constantly speed test to see if this or that and the modem jumps back and forth. You'd use terabytes of data every month just trying to see what's the fastest or best connection. So it's up to you. And T-Mobile is not going to train some third party out of the country scripted support person to try to help walk you through how to change bands and maybe lock towers. And they really don't want you doing that. They want to be able to control it completely on their own. It's easier for support. It's easier to log everything that's happening. They just want you to change your password on your Wi-Fi and plug it in, turn on, be happy. And for a lot of people, that's great. But if you're watching this video and you've watched this far, yours isn't so great. So if you want to keep your T-Mobile home internet, you may need to change hardware to gain that control, because T-Mobile, they really can't give you that control. And it may be an FCC thing too. We're not really supposed to openly give control to the bands as well as the towers. That may or may not be true. I don't think there's a real legality behind it. I don't think they want you to have that control overtly. Otherwise, they would have already given it to you. It's just much simpler if you don't have controls over that. But if you take the power into your own hands, you get a T-Mobile Business Internet Bring Your Own Device plan, which is spoken in the name. You can get your own device, and then you can grab the device that you want with a built-in antenna, so you don't have to worry about, there's no antenna connectors, there's just Ethernet, stuff like that. And then you have full power of your signal, so you're not using an external antenna with connectors that lose signal. You're using something that can give you full power, or maybe you don't need it as much, or you modify something like this, or even like this to go into an outdoor enclosure, or use the cables and antenna. Power's in your hands. That's what control's all about. Jump into the software, lock out bands, lock to towers, change from 5G standalone to non-standalone, turn off all 5G. I've heard of customers still to this day, this is September 20th, 2025, when I'm recording this video, and there are still customers out there that only on LTE, they have to turn off 5G, and they're getting 300-400 megabits down or more. That's still happening today. But if you don't have the level of control, then your T-Mobile home internet sucks. This has been Richard with thewirelesshaven.com. I try to teach as much as I can on all things cellular. Obviously, we have a store where we sell this type of stuff. If you have any questions, reach out anytime. I'll do my best to explain everything that I can, and we'll get you your control back so that your T-Mobile home internet no longer sucks. Take care.